Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Moore. Tom, how's it going?
I get to watch football in person tonight, unless it rains too much and there's storms. But probably maybe there will be football. I mean, it's 2020. What could go wrong? That's going to be exciting. Are you excited for football tonight?
I am. I'm checking the hourly updates, like hourly. Right as of like last night, it looked like there'd be a window from like 6 to 10 where there might not be any rain in Marysville, where I will be. So that would be ideal. And then the deluge can happen as soon as I get back to the car, or even after I wrap up interviews or whatever. I don't really care. Just let's get some football in. Let's get to watching some things and seeing some things and experiencing this thing that we all love called football, as opposed to court cases and protest, which I love those as well, Tom. Like how some people are foodies. I'm a protesty. I do love my protests, and I do love my court cases. And it sounds like, oh, well, we're going to have some of both of those, or at least, if not a court case, at least some sort of suit based on the things going on with the Nebraska football players. 8 players filing suit against the Big Ten, trying to get the season reinstated, trying to get the Big Ten's ruling to be ruled invalid. And I've seen people saying, like, yeah, it's just 8 players. More players should join. And it's like, I think you're going to see some other, like, I don't know if anybody can join that one, but I think you're going to see other players from other schools. Although I am concerned, Tom, I'm not concerned. I just wonder the lack of parent turnout at the Saturday or the Friday in Chicago. There was Illinois had 1 or 2 parents. It was Iowa and Wisconsin, mainly Iowa and Ohio State. Although with Nebraska now being one of these schools that has being the first to file suit, maybe that's a way for the families and players that couldn't have gotten to Chicago. Maybe this is a way for them to express their disdain of the conference. But it's certainly interesting. I don't think it's going to be the last kind of case that we get out of this. Do you?
No, oh, definitely not. I mean, there are 11 of the 14 Big Ten schools have parents organizations, parents associations that are signed on to what is now called Big Ten Parents United. So that is basically a group that's all asking for the same thing, which is, hey, can you explain this a little further? Because issuing the one statement and then issuing the other, that basic same statement again didn't actually answer any additional questions. So if you could provide us some more information, that would be super duper. I would imagine that you have a decent chance of seeing some version of this case filed in many of those 11 schools. I don't, and the last I heard, I believe the 3 schools that were not signed on were Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Maryland. So, if you have the Big Ten having to deal with cases in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Ohio and Michigan and Indiana and Illinois and Iowa and Nebraska, I mean, that's a lot. Like, that's a bunch of stuff they're going to have to deal with. This is going to be a big pain in the butt. And what was interesting to me, I had Ross Fulton on the morning show on Wednesday this week, and Ross is an attorney by trade, and said, the idea of the letter that was sent by the attorney in Nebraska was, it was like, okay, that's probably more aimed at shaming them than anything else. But the fact that this is now coming from players and not parents, I think that, I mean, this is me not being a lawyer, but I think that probably makes, they're more directly impacted, so they have standing or they have grounds to be party to this lawsuit, which makes it different than the parents. So that potentially changes some things. But what was very interesting to me was, I'm going to read a tweet from Sean Callahan from the Omaha World Herald. Big Ten attorney Andrew Luger argues the, quote, harm would be incredible, close quote, if board of directors documents were made available to the public just because 8 student athletes disagree with the decision. He said the court is asking for something with, open quote, no precedent, close quote. Now, the harm would be incredible if the board of directors documents were made available to the public just because 8 student athletes disagree with the decision. I mean, we've kind of touched on the 8 student athletes disagree with the decision. Like, yeah, very obviously there's many more of them that disagree with the decision than 8, but the harm would be incredible if the documents used to make this decision and related to the process by which they made this decision are released. These are public university officials making a decision. This is like 13 of these 14 schools are subject to FOIA. This is like if the harm would be incredible, you did something you really should not have done. And I mean, again, this is the Big Ten's attorney saying that. And I saw that was the first thing that I saw that was like, whoa, this is like there really may be something here.
The lack of precedence or whatever that the seeking of information from public institutions, there's no lack of precedence there. That happens every day, every year, and that's what this is as well. And the attorney saying because eight people want to know this, it's like, well, it didn't take many more than 8 people to make this happen. What was it, 9 or 10 presidents voting one way, and that's all it took to cancel the season? So, I mean, if we're going to talk the lack of numbers, then we can also put it on the other side. Yeah, 8 people want to know it because of what 9 or 10 or 11 people did. I don't understand the big difference between the two numbers when the numbers are similar. So if you're gonna put one side against the other and diminish that number, let's also talk about the other number. But yeah, the incredible harm that lets me know that then everybody needs to see what's going on. Like, you need to pull that curtain back and show everybody. And this is probably one of those things where when they talk about incredible harm, I'm guessing there's discussions about amateurism or whatever can lift off this veil of fakery that we all exist under, but now there is actual talk about it, and that's the great, this whole, it's all a fairy tale, but if you acknowledge the fairy tale, then you lose the magic. And I'm thinking maybe there's just a whole bunch of talking about the fairy tale inside these documents, and now you're going to read it, you're like, and all of the magic is just going to go away, and you're going to see everything for what it is, and then you've lost the moment, and now we have to deal with reality, and reality takes a whole bunch of money away from the schools. I don't know.
Yeah, I am super, super interested in what gets released, because I mean that's so often the bigger issue in cases like this is discovery, not the actual verdict. I mean, the amount that they were seeking was, it just said less than $75,000, and that may just be sort of a token amount to cover legal expenses. I mean, that's, you don't really know, but I mean, no one is getting rich off of less than $75,000 when it's split 8 ways with lawyers' fees and all of that. So the monetary amount we're talking about here is not the issue. It's the discovery and what's going to come out, because they asked for all the documents that they used to make the decision. They also asked for the bylaws that govern Big Ten decision making and the results of individual votes. And boy, there's a couple real potential tripwires there. Number one, if there is a process laid out for a decision like this and they didn't follow it, well, now you don't have a decision. So congratulations, you're back to playing football. Number two is result. I would assume that their thing says you need to have a vote. And so then if it says that, and they did have a vote, if they didn't have a vote, then you got a problem. If you did have a vote and you have some people who have presented their position as being one way and their actual vote was a different way, then they've got a real big problem. And either way, you're looking at some real high salaried people who might have some job security issues in the short term. And that's something that I could see making people real nervous. Because I mean, there have been reports out of the Big Ten that they were surprised by what a big deal this was. And my guess is they were surprised by what a big deal this was because they anticipated they were going to do it, and then everyone else is going to follow. And then it's like, well, we were leading. We are both the leaders and legends in this case. We have led the rest of the nation to the correct decision. Well, the other 3 big Power 5 leagues did not follow the Big Ten and Pac-12. So now it's become a little bit more an issue. The decision comes under a microscope a little more, and it sounds like the Big Ten is maybe not thrilled with what people are going to find when they look into that microscope.
I can't imagine like every president saying, yeah, let's not do football, but we're going to tell our people that we were totally for football. And so if this comes out and it's like, you lied to us, you said you were for football and you weren't, then that's going to cause some problems. Tom, as you were talking, and we joke on this program about stuff news breaking or whatever while we're doing this, I see a tweet from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel saying the Big Ten working on a plan that could feature football starting Thanksgiving weekend.
I saw that, and it's, I mean, I think that there has been a lot of movement on a couple different fronts since the Big Ten made their decision. And let me preface this once again with the fact that neither of us are cardiologists or epidemiologists, but there has been some indication that the myocarditis study that the Big Ten apparently based a decent amount of this decision on may have not been accurately reported, or the results may have been, not, an updated look at that study may have made it, not nearly as bad as it initially appeared. And again, I'm not a cardiologist. I'm just telling you what I'm reading on twitter.com by people who say they are cardiologists in their bio. But, there was a guy from England who said, I don't know what this Big Ten organization is. Seems like some sort of sports club or something. And then he went on a long tweet storm with a bunch of statistical stuff that I kind of went, I don't know what that means. Okay. Just to get to the conclusion, where's the executive summary? And it was his summation was basically, I bet you're going to see these Big Ten chaps revisit this decision pretty soon. So that was one thing that was kind of an interesting thing this week. The other thing is the development of that test, the spit test, that is, I think it was $5 and 15 minutes. And boy, if you can do if you can have a accurate, 95% accurate is what it said, spit test for $5 and 15 minutes, like, sure, you tell me where to sign up. I will show up at Ohio Stadium. I'll take 3 of them. I don't care. I'll pay you $100. I'll take 3 of your $5 tests. I will pay for the tests. Let me in. That's fine. And then you get people in, and you can be reasonably confident that no one in the stadium has COVID. And ta-da, football, hooray. This has all happened since the Big Ten made that decision, which is, I think, why, I think people have, it's easy to look at what we're saying and saying they definitely have to play football. That's not what either of us have been saying at any point in the last few weeks. It's stupid to rush into a decision right now because there are no major issues right now and things are changing very quickly. Well, now things are changing very quickly, and it seems like they're changing in a couple ways in directions that would make it easier to play football. So the leagues that are still in a place to potentially play football are in decent shape right now. I mean, there's been outbreaks on certain campuses. There are still issues going on, but there are, I mean, Clemson, our buddy Matt Connolly from Clemson just tweeted out they had 624 COVID tests in the athletic department and 0 positives this week. So that's, I mean, you can do this. It is okay if you follow your proper procedures and protocols. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes, but I am more optimistic that there will be some sort of football played between now and, say, January 10th than I was a week ago.
Yeah. I sent an email. I reached out to a cardiologist at Ohio State, like well-renowned and well-known. And I'm like, hey, I want to talk to you. Can I talk to you about this Big Ten cardiomyopathy thing? And he's like, that's not really my specialty. Here's a guy that you can go to. And it just struck me like, here's a cardiologist that knows everything there is to know about the heart. And he's like, but this isn't my exact specialty. Let me get you to somebody who is even more specialized on that. And I was thinking, I exist on Twitter. There is no such thing as like, let me tell you somebody who knows even more. It's like we all know what's going on. And that's, I'm like researching myocarditis, cardiomyopathy, not the same thing, but they seem to be used interchangeably. And, I'm trying to brush up on this, talk to this guy about it. He's like, you know what? Let me tell you somebody who knows even more. And I don't know, it's kind of refreshing, but there's the about everything. And again, Tom, I think we've continued to try to say this. If you have one person who is not COVID positive, who is COVID negative, and another who is COVID negative, and they tackle each other, that does not create COVID-19. I don't know that we can stress that enough for the people out there who are convinced that football will cause an outbreak. But this is what we've been saying all along. Why are you canceling so soon? As more information comes out, as the Big Ten, we've picked apart Kevin Warren's letter about how everything, frankly, they were wanted to work day by day, slowly but surely, and then you were doing that until you decided to cancel it all. So I think some of the questions we have for our listener questions episode here that we're doing right now, that we will eventually get to, it is like, how do you expect a turnaround or something of that? We'll get to it. I don't. It would seem awfully out of character for Kevin Warren and the Big Ten to suddenly shift gears and be like, you know what, no, let's play. But maybe with all of this information we're talking about, the lawsuits, the parents' protests that are going to be kicking off this weekend, Saturday in Columbus, 11 a.m. at the Horseshoe at the North Rotunda. Come on, come all, I guess, but don't, unless you're a player. I think maybe players aren't supposed to be there. But you talked with, who did you speak with this week about from the parents' organization?
I talked to Amanda Babb, who is wide receiver Cameron Babb's stepmom. She is the president of the Football Parents Association at Ohio State, and she said, "Yeah, I mean, have the public come out, join them, 11 a.m. at the Horseshoe. Go ahead and want to bring signs. I mean, it's just they're basically looking for people to just help them. There will be some speakers. They're looking for people to bring signs and just kind of show your support. And the general themes are they're looking for some transparency. They're looking for some answers. They're looking for some some response from the Big Ten. And so that anything along those lines, I think is the Parents Association sounds like they would be real happy with. So come on out. I think Tony and I will be there, and our buddy Mark Givler. So if you
have your sign ready.
Yes, it's I'm gonna have to have my camera in one hand and my sign in the other. Yes, it'll be very exciting. But
will your sign just be a big poster of you?
Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, I'm gonna be wearing a white cowboy hat and a cape. So I'll be easy to find. Yeah, if you do happen to come up and see us from a socially distanced distance. Tony's kind of a jerk in person, but you can feel free to say hi to me. So yeah, that'll be that's at 11
and then I'll get all uppity, like, oh, you can't talk to me, but you didn't want me talking to you. Yeah, I don't want you to talk to me, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't.
Right? Yeah, I don't want you talking to me. I want you to want to talk to me. That's where Tony is really mentally. So yeah, come if you do come up and say hi. We'll Tony will autograph your white Buckeye cowboy hat if you have one. So and he'll only charge you $5 for a picture. He's a good guy.
And the thing is, I will charge you before you even ask for it. So you already owe me $5 if you're listening to this.
Oh man, we just found a great new business model. You ready for listener questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First one from @Lance Not Lance. Can you turn this into a college football / lawn care podcast? Because I'm going to have a ton of time on Saturdays this fall.
I don't know. I don't know if they will have time. I don't know if he will have time. We might have football, but Tom, we have been dealt an awful lot of fertilizer lately. So, like I can see Kevin Warren doing commercials for fertilizer, like Kevin Warren's Big Ten fertilizer. When I want to feed the lawn or the media, I give them the same thing. I just give them a whole bunch of bull crap and look at them grow.
Kevin Warren's fertilizer. Eat up. Yeah, I will say that the fact that it has been, I've had a lot more free time this summer with youth sports not happening in the spring. My dad's like, "Wow, your garden looks great. Why is your garden so much better this year than in a normal year?" It's like, well, because I've been around a whole bunch. So been a good year for tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers in my house. Next one from @Whetstone TKD. Do you think they'll push back the start of basketball season 2? I certainly think that's almost certainly going to happen. I mean, the Pac-12, when they announced, they surprised everyone by saying that they were going to start basketball season on January 1st. Like none of the fall stuff was going to happen. My guess would be that will probably slide back for some or all programs. And one of the big differences here with basketball is the NCAA has oversight over basketball. The NCAA does not have oversight over FBS football, which is one of the reasons why you've had all this, discombobulated mess between the big conferences, and why it's kind of been just a complete gong show. And the NCAA does have oversight over the basketball. So I think you may have a little bit more of a holistic approach there, maybe in basketball, where it'll be easier. There is an overarching governing body that may make it easier to coordinate some of the responses and the plan. So that may be a little bit different. But yes, I would assume you are not going to see the Maui Classic or the whatever else they play in Thanksgiving time.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be like they'll all start at the same time and end at the same time, because you can't not be part of March Madness, basically. Like the Big Ten,
2020 would disagree, but yes, go on.
Yes, but in terms of like if it's going on, you're gonna have to keep up with it, and that's why I think, does the NCAA just say we'll start at the beginning of the year, and that's when the season will start, and will there be non-conference games? I just think we'll see everybody going at the same time, which is, I do expect it to be pushed back, but I don't know how much. But at least I expect everything to be kept together, just because, as you said, it's overseen by the NCAA, which, say what you want, but at least they're overseeing something. At least they're gonna have something organized, because organization at this point is, we don't have it, so it'd be nice.
Yeah, the NCAA may not be great, but there are other people who aren't great at running college athletics, apparently. So the NCAA, I mean, it can't get that much worse, right? He said, daring the universe. Yes. Next one from @VanGo_0. Can OSU compete as an intramural team in the college football playoffs? Now, there was a report at one point that Ohio State was allowing intramural athletics to go on, but then, correct me if I'm wrong, you looked into that, and that ended up not being accurate. Is that right?
Yeah, apparently OSU sent out a letter saying, our intramurals is on, club sports are on, and then later on they were like, no, they're not. So you mentioned the organization aspect of things and how there's a lack of it. So yeah, it looked like Ohio State initially said that intramurals can go on, and then within hours they're like, no, there's no intramurals, there's no club sports. You can unless you can do them online. So whatever your esports, I guess, chess, who knows, but yeah, no contact intramural. So no, sadly, the Buckeyes cannot compete as an intramural team in the college football playoffs, which I'm sure the committee totally would have allowed them had OSU not nixed this.
Intramural sports, yes, and by yes we mean no. Next one from Chase Disc Paper 1. With the college football playoff committee clearly throwing their weight behind a fall season, what would the Big Ten / Pac-12 be vying for? A conference championship and a glorified Rose Bowl? Haven't we seen how that movie ends? Now, here's my question, and this was a topic on Twitter this week, and I don't quite understand the argument. The argument was basically, well, it would be ridiculous for Ohio State or whoever wins if they do split this way, which now is looking like maybe it's not how it's going to happen, but we'll see. If they do split up and have separate seasons, it would be completely ludicrous for Ohio State or whoever wins the Rose Bowl in this circumstance, under this kind of, situation that he's laying out here. It would be completely ludicrous for Ohio State or whoever wins it to call themselves a national champion. And my question is, why? I mean, you have 3 conferences playing this fall, and one of them is going to win the playoff and declare themselves the national champion of the fall. It's like, well, Ohio State didn't play, so therefore, does it count? I mean, Ohio State didn't play, and Ohio State was ranked number 2 in the preseason. So is that a full legitimate season? And a spring season where, Clemson and the SEC teams aren't playing, but sure, this is college football. UCF just claimed the national championship 3 years ago, and it's like, it was kind of tongue in cheek, but you know what? It's college football. Like this is the most wonderful sport with the dumbest way of declaring or determining its champion. You can still have split championships if the Billingsley rating system declares you a champion, you can claim a champion. Like, what is Alabama going to dog Ohio State for claiming a national championship when they didn't win the true major regular national championship? Come on, do it. Like, absolutely. Ohio State claims 1970 when they lost the Rose Bowl. Alabama claims a bunch of them. That's like the Tuscaloosa Towing Company national championship. They claim one for 1942 when they finished number 20 in the AP poll. Like, sure, do it. Like, this is college sports. It's supposed to be fun. This is a sport that has all sorts of really dumb history with that kind of stuff. Like, absolutely, claim it, put it up on the stadium wall, fly that flag. Absolutely.
2020 dash 2021 national champs. But
Yeah.
The first 120 odd years of college football, national championships were opinions.
Mm-hmm.
So this would just be another opinion. I also don't buy into the what are they playing for, because they're still playing for Big Ten championship. You're still trying to win every game. You're still playing against Michigan. You're still I did see somebody suggest opening against Michigan January 1st in the Rose Bowl, which sounds amazing to me, even though it cost Ohio State a home game. But this year, all home games are pretty much a wash anyway because of the fans. But, put both, home uniforms on both teams, throw them in the Rose Bowl January 1st. Like, I'm in for that. No, it's not a dome, so no, it's not Indianapolis. I guess we can get over that. No, it's not Minneapolis. But if you want to make a winter season a little bit more special, then maybe something like that. Although, I don't like opening with Michigan clearly, but there are ways to make it even more interesting. I think we're all going to watch it. TV is going to show it. It is going to be important. It won't be practice. It won't be. And I get annoyed by the whole JV aspect of it as well, which is a complete insult to all of the players playing in it and just trying to win these games and claim whatever. And if the definition of a successful season at Ohio State is a national title, then Ohio State is one of the most unsuccessful programs in the history of college football because 98%, 99% of their seasons, 97, 6, whatever, end in failure. So congratulations, you root for a loser.
Yeah, I don't understand at all people will make fun of you. Like, okay, I mean, may I refer you to my attorney, Mr. Marcus Hall? Like, whatever. That's whatever, man. Like, cool. This is, yeah. I mean, Alabama. Congratulations. You made the college football playoff again, and all it took was a global pandemic to knock Ohio State out. Like, it's fine. Just if someone says something on Twitter, you're allowed to talk crap back. It's okay, and also it doesn't matter. Like, it's cool. It's fine. And I mean, the interesting thing with I mean, you mentioned them playing Michigan on New Year's Day in the Rose Bowl, which would be, I mean, amazing, incredible. The symbolism. I think we talked about this when Ryan Day first discussed this plan, but the symbolism of playing starting the new year with something like that on New Year's Day, and the symbolism of the new beginning. Like, holy smokes, that would be powerful. But also, if they're going to do the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel thing and potentially start on around Thanksgiving, you could have the Ohio State Michigan game around Thanksgiving this year. I mean, if you wanted to do it as the opening thing and you wanted to do it Thanksgiving weekend, that wouldn't be so bad as a little bit of get back into it. And then again, if something changes and you're not able to finish your season, you still got your Ohio State Michigan game in. So, I mean, Air Force, the last time I looked at Air Force's schedule, Air Force is scheduled to play 2 football games this fall. They play Army and they play Navy, and that's it. And you know what? Those are the 2 games Air Force cares about. So that's fine. So if Ohio State plays 1 game this year and it's Michigan and they do it on Thanksgiving weekend, yep, that's fine. That's really, I mean, go back a month and all we were saying is whatever, as long as there's an Ohio State Michigan game this year, it's a good year. So that's fine. So yeah, I mean, I think they're still sort of sorting out some details, but if they can make that work, whether it's Thanksgiving weekend or January 1st, I mean, that either one would be pretty darn cool. Next one from @Stewart_E4 US Vet. Do you see the players pushing to unionize after the communication failure from the Big Ten? Hypothetically, would OSU have enough backing if they decided to be an independent in the future? In what order would you want the Buckeye Scoop team to have your back in a fight, and why? Let's do the first two first, and then we can do the Buckeye Scoop team.
I don't think the whole unionizing thing is tough, because once players become vocal, they're off, they're gone. Like Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are becoming vocal right now, but then they leave for the NFL, and the unionization thing is no longer a concern. And I think that's a part of the problem with college football, is that the voices churn through so often, and then they're gone, and then somebody else to replace them, and there's no stability to get it done, because these guys are just flying through, and it takes a long time to get stuff established. And if you are so focused on that, you're also not going to be as focused as the team would like on playing, on succeeding, on winning. And you're the kind of guys that I guess would be able to lead this sort of thing are also the kind of guys who have come to college for the NFL, not necessarily for the college experience. And these are also guys who are, you look at the letter from the Ohio State players saying, we don't feel like we're being taken advantage of. The players at the upper echelon of schools are living the life. They live well, they eat well, they have everything they need. So it's also tough to, like, these guys aren't struggling. So how do you get them to want the best for everybody when they look around their brothers in their bubble and they're all doing fine? And so, yeah. And then in a year or two, they're off to the NFL. It would take, I don't know how you do it in a quick period of time. And I don't know how, because the schools and the conferences and everything else would put up a fight. I just don't think players are around long enough to fight this battle.
Yeah, that's one of the issues. And I think the other thing that might make it so there's not actually a union is if there's enough movement on this, and there's enough movement on the name, image, and likeness stuff, and it sure seems like there is, the Big Ten or the NCAA may just end up having to cave on a lot of this stuff, and then you sort of get the benefits of it without having to have an official union, and they can you can get a lot of the same benefits of it. Where you have the name, image, and likeness, you potentially have some sort of group licensing. Maybe they can work out some kind of group licensing thing, which, I mean, that plays in with things like the NCAA video game. You may have just the threat of this may be enough to force movement from the NCAA on a lot of this, because this is the time to do it. Because if they're with as much as is up in the air, and as much as needs to be sorted out, and as much as I think the NCAA is sort of figuring out, like, hey, this is kind of a disaster right now because we don't have a central governing body. We don't have, you've got players sort of working individually right now or in small groups. That if the Big Ten has to answer court cases in 10 different states this week or next week, that's going to make the Big Ten potentially more motivated to have one group they can sort of be, not negotiating with, but at least, working with or whatever, including in the discussion process, perhaps. I mean, that's something that might end up making this happen without an official union forming. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. So as far as Ohio State being independent, there's a lot that goes into this beyond just the athletics. There is a lot of research money that is tied into being a Big Ten school. That's one of the, there's always a lot of questions about why is Rutgers part of the Big Ten, and yeah, cable TV households is absolutely part of it. But honestly, the biggest benefit to Rutgers is there's access to all sorts of resources in terms of research money and that type of stuff that comes along with it. So Ohio State is not going to leave the Big Ten. Because and one of the reasons is it's not an athletics decision. It's a university decision, and they don't want to give up all the stuff that they get on the academic and resource and research side from being a Big Ten affiliated school. So, just just the fact that they're mad right now about football is not going to be what drives that decision. Last one. In what order would you want the Buckeye Scoop team to have your back in a fight, and why? I will say I have not met all of these guys in person, but my first answer is Kirk Barton.
Well, see, I would leave Kirk out of this. We don't need him getting in any more trouble. So I'm thinking I would go Bill Green because he's always carrying golf clubs. So
that's a good answer.
he's packing. Yeah. And then I would also throw Mick Walker in there because he's young and he can take more punishment, and then he can bounce back quicker. So if I'm going to go with two, I'll just go with two. You're a family man, so we don't want to involve you. I'm just going to go with the guy who has weapons and the guy who can take a beating and then bounce back quicker.
I do have dad strength. Alex Gleitman has dad strength. I mean, that can help. But
and I was thinking about you two, both of you, and I forgot about this because you're both Jersey guys, so you know how to get rid of bodies. So there is that as well.
You was talking to me. Next one from @Larry_legend9. A lot of underscores today. Which conference/teams should we cheer for this fall?
Are you picking teams? I'm a BC fan this year. You get to see we talk on this as much as we could talk about Jeff Hafley. We probably don't talk enough about how much we enjoyed covering him. So you root for him. I want to see what their offense does with Phil Jerkovich, Jalen Gill, and guys like that. And even they got a backup quarterback Sam Johnson that I got to watch and get to know at an Ohio State camp. So I'm looking forward to watching them. North Carolina as well. Oklahoma State is another team that I think could come out of the Big 12 and surprise some people and maybe be the fourth playoff team. That it's got to come from somewhere, unless they all come from the SEC.
And they might. This is definitely going to be the year you have a lot of dumb people on TV arguing for 3 SEC teams to make the playoff. Like 100%. Just prepare yourself now. I definitely like the Boston College suggestion. Got some nice, Jalen Gill there. Like that's a nice story. It'd be great to see Jeff Hafley succeed there. I've always been very partial to Iowa State. That's one of the random schools that I always, I like Matt Campbell a lot. He's going to be someone who's at some point going to be coaching somewhere better than Ames, Iowa, and have more resources than he has at Iowa State, and is going to do some probably pretty good stuff. But yeah, I enjoy Iowa State. I've always enjoyed just aesthetically the Gary Patterson experience, where he's just an absolute hot mess on the sidelines at all times, like constantly sweating through shirts. Like there was the bowl game.
Is he a barbecue judge or is he a football coach?
It's like he's judging the world's hottest wings competition, and it's like pay attention to the game. Stop eating the wings. Goodness, yeah. He has games where I forget which one it was. He sweated through his shirt in the first half of a game and came out in like a different shirt in the second half. That might have been the bowl game where they had that crazy comeback against Oregon. That might have been that game. But yeah, he's just kind of amusing. So that covers your Big 12, your ACC. I mean, I always just love rooting for chaos. That's always just root for the underdog. In all cases, root for the underdog. Whoever's playing Clemson, whoever's playing Georgia, whoever's playing Alabama, just root for chaos. And it's going to be a lot like what you discussed earlier, where if a national championship is your only measure of success, then you're not going to be successful very often. Like if you're rooting for Arkansas against Alabama, you're not going to be successful very often. That's just kind of how it is. But if Alabama loses to Tennessee this year, or oh man, if Georgia loses to South Carolina again, oh man, I might just be rooting for South Carolina this fall just because I want to watch Georgia lose to them again. Because oh man, they are going to be big mad if they lose to South Carolina again.
And we are all Ole Miss fans this year for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The more success that they can have, the more fun Lane Kiffin will have with everybody, and that is fun for us.
Yeah, and I would also throw Mississippi State in there. If you don't remember, Mike Leach is now coaching Mississippi State, and that's going to be year one with an air raid. Switching to an air raid system is generally a complete tire fire. The fact that they didn't have a full spring is going to probably not help that at all. It might be real bad, but if they can pull it together and upset someone, that would be fun. Mike Leach is another one of those characters that I just like. I just enjoy Mike Leach. I've enjoyed him since Texas Tech. I dragged you to the Cheez-It Bowl so we could go watch Mike Leach play Air Force last December while we were in Arizona. Like, yeah, that's it. I don't think that's going to go real well for him this fall. But if he can do something, if he can pull something off, that would be pretty fun this fall as well. At Mr_Mike42, chances the presidents and Kevin Warren reconsider if the other three leagues pull off a couple of successful weeks.
I think it's too late by then to they would be reconsidering it before then. Like if they get to that point, and it seems like maybe they already are. We don't know that for sure, but I would they start? They see them play for 3 weeks and be like, okay, let's start camp now and go out there. I think they would already be moving in that direction. And maybe they should now, just because we continue to get good information. I don't see them moving because of a couple of successful weeks. I think they would have to be moving ahead of that before that.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is you're going to have to get ramped back up because you do not have guys out there practicing right now. And I mean, going back to the summer, we were told they needed 6 weeks basically to get prepped for the season. And it's minimally going to be 4 weeks to get prepped for the season. So, even if you're not doing the 2 weeks of lifting and conditioning before camp, you've minimally got to have those 4 weeks of camp. And so probably 4 to 6 weeks. So, for them to be ready for the theoretical end of November kind of start to the season, they would have to be in camp in kind of second week of October probably, and that means you probably need to have guys sort of getting back inside of a bubble of sorts a couple weeks before that, because what we've seen is when teams are practicing together and staying in their facilities, the majority of them have had few to zero issues with positive tests while they're sort of together. It's when you have guys go home that all of a sudden someone picks it up there and brings it back, and that's when you start having issues. So, you're going to have it. There's going to be a real ramp up period, and you can't rush it. You're seeing in baseball what happens if you rush it. They kind of rushed back and had a real condensed spring training, and then you've had a ton of injuries this year more than you normally would, and they obviously don't want to do that. So, yeah, I think the ship has sailed for them playing the same season as the SEC, ACC, Big 12, just because if they, unless they stop and then start playing again later, if those schools, get to the point where they get to mid-September and okay, we can't really start, we'll push it back to Thanksgiving week or January 1st or whatever, then you might have a unified season. I think it's going to be very hard for them to have a unified season at this point, just because of they have put themselves so far behind right now that it's going to be very hard for them to catch up. From Mr. Ohio with a 1 instead of an I, chances that any Power 5 conference finishes the season.
I'm writing down my percentages, and it's almost like one of those Price is Right games where I keep writing a larger number until I decide, whoa, that's okay right there, right? I don't want to go any higher than that. And I was at 50, 55, 60, 65, and then I went to 70. I'm like, I think I need to come down here. I was at 69%. I'm like, well, maybe still just a little too high. So I went at 65.69%.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, I think it's better than 50-50 that someone does it. I think that it's better than 50-50 that the SEC does it, because I think the chances are functionally zero that the Big 12 finishes but the SEC doesn't, or the ACC finishes and the SEC doesn't. If someone is going to finish, it's going to be the SEC. I think you're probably better than 50-50 right now, but it's just there's just so many variables right now that we don't know what the response is going to be, because you have the NC State just had to shut stuff down and delay their first game because they had an outbreak there. Texas Tech had 22, 24 positive cases, and they're still practicing. They just pulled those guys off, and they're still practicing. So a lot of this is going to be based on individual programs and what their protocols are for this kind of stuff. If you're going to shut things down, if you have 3 positive tests, then you're not going to make it through a season. If you're going to, you can't you can't deal with 22 positive tests constantly. Like that's not a sustainable thing either. So they're going to have to figure out a way to keep these guys sort of safe and bubbled. And Major League Baseball is kind of doing it. I mean, they have had issues, but they have had relatively few issues. So if you can kind of follow that model and just accept the fact that there are going to be some weeks that are like, yeah, you're going to have to cancel some games. Sometimes the Mets are going to get COVID, and then you're not going to. Then all of a sudden, the series against the Yankees is going to be canceled. I mean, you've seen that with the Marlins and the Cardinals and some other teams this year. So it's doable, and I think that the SEC is probably almost certainly the most likely to try and see this all the way through. But it's definitely not 100%. I mean, Clemson or Oklahoma just had a position group where they lost a bunch of guys. LSU had a position group where they lost a bunch of guys. So this is not going to be a real clean, easy process. It's just going to kind of be about risk tolerance and protocols.
And it could just go like it could be wiped out over the course of like 2 days. Everything just falls apart, and so that's what you can't predict. You just have to factor it in. But I feel like a season will happen, but we're 65.69%.
All right. This last one from our buddy Jared Sloopcast. Jared from the Sloopcast. FOIA questions, expectations, and redactions. So
are we lawyers?
Yeah, we're journalists. That's basically the same thing. FOIA, for those of you guys who don't know, is the Freedom of Information Act request. That's you file a FOIA request or Freedom of Information Act request with public institutions. There are documents they're required to turn over to you as, just basically you're a public institution, you're public officials. This is sort of a check on your power to make sure you're following the rules and being transparent in what you do. So Jared's first question on FOIA: what are we really expecting? I'm sure all of the interesting bits were said over phone/conference, and it's a safe bet that those weren't recorded. So this is about the FOIA requests that are going out. Tom Mars, the attorney, has sent out FOIA request, I believe, to all 13 public institutions in the Big Ten. I know that we are one of a number of media organizations that has sent stuff out to at least one or more Big Ten schools. So what are we really expecting to get them? Because he's right. I think a lot of the interesting stuff. I mean, these are, if you are a public official, you are subject to FOIA, and therefore you don't put stuff that you don't want out there in written form in a place that it would be available to be a responsive document to a FOIA request. So what are we really expecting, Gerd?
I kind of view it as you're panning for gold, and you're just sifting through a lot of dirt. And I think that's what we're going to get. What are we expecting? I would be surprised if something revelatory is found. What I would like to know is basically what we all want to know. Can we find out about the vote? Was there a vote? What did whatever the president said? And there's other questions of if it's said in the realm of the Big Ten, is it still open for FOIA if it's being said as part of a private company? There's so many different aspects to this, but yeah, I want to know if Ohio State was in favor, who from Ohio State was in favor, who from Ohio State wasn't, who did they talk to, what did they say, what kind of reactions did they have in-house to stuff from the Big Ten, like stuff that they're getting. What are they then relaying via text and things like that? Because, as you said, like the presidents may not be saying stuff that can be FOIA'd, or like they're smart, and not that everybody else isn't, but they're specifically trying to avoid stuff that is FOIAble. And whereas down the line, just random texts from one party to another saying something like Warren is screwing us, or Maryland won't stop talking about we need to shut things down. I think it'll just give us just a window into what Ohio State and other schools are dealing with.
I am going to go back to my New Jersey roots here that we referenced earlier, and I don't want to compare the Big Ten university presidents to a crime family. However, on the on like mob wiretaps and all of that, like a lot of stuff is said in code. They know they're speaking and people could be listening. And I think there's probably in a lot of those documents, I think that you're going to have that, the not like super open conversations. A lot of those can happen on the phone. They can happen in person. They can happen over Zoom, on not recorded Zoom calls, not recorded phone calls, so that there is nothing responsive. So yeah, I mean, I don't think you're necessarily going to get a real smoking gun. I think what could be real interesting is what the result of the vote is, and if the Big Ten bylaws say they have to have a vote, and it's a 10-4 vote or an 8-6 vote or whatever, who voted for what? Because that is, they once again, in a response to that Nebraska lawsuit, released the same exact verbiage about an overwhelming majority. It's like, and what were the numbers? If you had to put that into numbers, how would you describe those numbers? So
we can't put numbers into numbers. That doesn't fit. You can't do that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they're that I think is going to be probably the thing I'm like looking for first when this all comes out. Question number 2: what is the redaction process? So redaction, for those of you who don't know, is basically when you FOIA something from Ohio State, there is an office specifically dedicated to that, and you send them an email and you request whatever documents you request. They acknowledge that right away, and then they will send you those documents. Now, there is certain information in there that they are not allowed to release because of privacy concerns and that kind of stuff. So personally identifying information, that kind of stuff, they will go through and they will block it out with a big black bar, essentially. Like in the old days, they did it with like a big dark Sharpie marker, and now they just have, a computer just block it out with a big black bar. So you'll sometimes get pages that are just like an entire page of nothing but black. And that's a real good use of toner, first of all. But second of all, it's like you don't know what's on there, or you'll have, 3 sentences blocked out in a row, but other stuff it'll be there. And a lot of times you'll see this in NCAA cases where you'll have names of student athletes blocked out, and it'll just be, the coach is talking to someone else and they say, name redacted, was late for practice today, something, so you don't know who it is. You can have real fun doing that's a short name, so it's 2, it's can't be more than 8 letters total, so therefore I think I would be real easy to find in a FOIA document with a 6-letter first and last name. But so anyway, so yeah, that's the redaction process. They go through. They have 30 days to respond to a FOIA, and this is one of the reasons, because they have attorneys reviewing and making sure there's not anything that's, going to get them in trouble for privacy reasons or, medical reasons or anything like that. So they have attorneys go through, review all of this stuff, and then you get it, but they have 30 days to provide it, and they can, in certain circumstances, ask for more time as well. Third, legally, on what grounds does the university have a right to redact information? I assume they can redact anything that falls under HIPAA and personal contact information, but what else? I think we covered most of that. Anything else that I didn't cover?
I will also add to what Tom said and co-sign that as a lawyer.
There we go. Question number 4, do they have to justify the redactions? Does anyone review if redactions are legitimate, or does the university trust it to police itself? I mean, it's basically trusted to police itself. My interactions with the university FOIA office have all been fine. I've not had an issue with the university FOIA office, and I've requested everything from football game contracts to coaches contracts to the text messages sent back and forth between Urban Meyer and Zach Smith in 2017 and 2018. I mean, and they have been responsive. I have not gone through and thought, yeah, they're probably hosing me here. And I can't speak for other FOIA offices, but that has been my experience with Ohio State. I think that there probably is a way to appeal, but I have never had to go through that process because I haven't really had an issue. How about you?
Yeah, no, same. And every time I've been shot down, I understand why, in terms of, your question might be too broad, so you have to narrow it down. So there are issues like that where they'll even not quite guide you on what to ask, but just say, let's narrow this focus, because what you're asking for would take way too long for us to find, and it's too broad of a thing that you're even asking for. So yeah, I haven't had any issues other than, sometimes it can take a little bit of time, but that's just the nature of the beast, pretty much. Anything else, Tom, before we go ahead and call it a day and get you out of here?
No, we started the show with you telling me how great the weather looked for your game in Marysville tonight. I just looked up the weather for Cincinnati, where I'm going tonight for a game,
Mhm.
and yeah, from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, it is 50%, 45% chance of scattered thunderstorms. So we may have may get a little damp, may have a little weather delay, but if there is football, that's great.
I'm just hoping it holds out, and then we'll have so much like footage, video coverage, interviews for you guys. That would be it'll be something we hope to do every weekend, basically, until later in October when we're at Ohio State football games. So that's great.
Yeah, this is a weekend where we're going to be covering. We're all covering high school football games this weekend, all with Ohio State commitments or prospects or offered kids, and we're going to be in four different games all across the state from Cincinnati up to Cleveland area, and yeah, the plan is to do this every week because there's a whole lot of real interesting high school kids in the state. I mean, kids who are already committed for 2021 up to 2023 kids who are our recruiting guys say there are a couple of guys in the state for 2023 who are like potential 5-star top 10 overall player in the nation kind of players. Bill Green's going to be up in at the Medina Mentor game, seeing one of those guys tonight, and also seeing Drew Aller, who's a quarterback. That's Brennan Vernon, who's a defensive end at Mentor, and he'll also be up there seeing Drew Aller, who's a 2022 quarterback, who's going to Medina, and but yeah, Mick Walker's going to be in Springfield. You're going to be in Marysville, and Mark Givler and I are going down to Cincinnati. So lots of really interesting stuff. We are this is actually going to be a as long as there is football, this is going to be a really fun fall. We are not we're not going away. We're not taking the fall off.
No.
So make sure you check out BuckeyeScoop.com for all of that, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot more on the Ask the Insiders board on all of those guys. More than we'll share on the front page. So do consider becoming a member of BuckeyeScoop.com. Because hey, this is all of a sudden this is looking like every time you think the fall 2020 football season is dead, it's like, well, maybe it's only mostly dead. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
there's signs of life. So hey, we'll see you all Saturday at the Horseshoe, right?
Yeah,
It's
I'll be there at 11, and just when you see Gerd, just don't make eye contact. Otherwise, you'll be fine.
Do not address me. And when you don't address me, I will become furious. All right. So we will talk to you guys later. Have a good one.